The opening.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to kick the show off like this. I'm going to say good evening to everybody that's watching. I guess I'd like to pronounce your name correctly. People always say it wrong, and I'm sure many people do. It is not KEIR, correct? Is that correct?
That's
Please
correct.
tell me how to pronounce your name.
KEIR, like
How do you
here.
pronounce your name?
KEIR,
KEIR,
like
KEIR,
here.
yeah, like KEIR, because
No,
I
like
kept
here.
saying KEIR,
Here.
KEIR. I kept saying, and I know it's wrong. I'm just wondering how many people do that to you on a
All the
regular
time.
basis, all the time, and I truly do apologize for that.
That's
All right, well, my name is Kendall Stevenson, and I am the host and co-host of the Politricks show. If you can look to it would be to my right. You see that brother over there, that handsome guy with the headphones on? Yep, that is the man of the hour.
Hotep.
His name is Ronald Yates, and he's here to say Hotep. Hotep, for those that don't know, means peace. Okay. Generally, we like to say Ashe, give props to our ancestors. All right, Miss Bradford, Miss Gray,
Yes.
I understand your time is short, so I'm really going to try to kick it off this week. There's been some crazy stuff going on in politics, and especially with your boy, your president.
My
Is he out of
boy.
his mind?
Don't do that.
Yeah. No, really, is he out of his mind?
Yes.
He wants to put his name on money.
Oh,
That's what he wants to do.
That's the least of when you said, is he out of his mind? That's the least I thought what you were going to bring up to demonstrate he's out of his mind. But I'll let you finish this.
Okay, well, I mean, we could talk about the war that's going on, the war that's not really a war, the war that's pretty much over oil. Because this is my hypothesis. For years, BP Petroleum, the British Petroleum Oil, they've been claiming the oil under Iran as theirs, saying that they own this oil. Mm-hmm. And my man could tell you through the years what went on with Gaddafi, wanting to unite Africa. And they're over there trying to take all the resources. They're starting with the oil. If they control the world's oil, they control the world. And I think that's the direction that he's trying to do. All the other stuff, the ICE agents and what's going on with the Epstein's files. I think a lot of that smoke and mirrors, because I think when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, all of these corrupt people up there, they're getting rich. Pan Bondi. What's the other one? What's
Christy
the other
Nome?
one? What's the
Christy Nome?
Christy Gnomes. It's $143 million. Where's it at?
Yeah.
That nobody can't seem to find.
Oh, we need to look at the purchase of stock.
Go ahead, because like I said, I know your time is short, and I want people to hear what you got to say.
Well, Kendall, I think just going to your first question, is he out of his mind? I think that we have so many examples of a president that has really changed the face of the decorum that comes out of that office, but not just the decorum. It really calls into question, does he have sane mind when he's writing tweets saying that every effing person will die? I mean, really writing a tweet that really just admitted to committing a war crime tonight, starting at 8 p.m. If he doesn't get what he wants. I have never seen this type of rhetoric, but also this type of demeanor coming from an office, even from other corrupt presidents in our history. I mean, this has never been something that we have seen in our lifetime. And I think this is going to forever change the face of this role. And I think that's unfortunate, because it is now kind of demoralized us as a United States country. And our leadership is showing that we have no real moral compass, nor do we have boundaries by which we say that we are bound to the social contract of America, just like everyone else. So I have a hard time with what he's doing and how he's doing it.
Well, I have a question.
You know the irony? I'm sorry. Here's the irony of it. The straits are open, just not to us.
That's true. And I don't think he anticipated some of their defense strategy mechanisms that, look, they may not be as mighty in terms of all the power that America has, but they are very savvy and strategic to use what they got and to kind of create more allies in this, because there's obviously got to be more allies for them to stay in this long and contend with the United States of America as we are enacted a war upon them with Israel.
And we're losing allies as we go along. Every day we're losing more and more allies because this guy wants to talk nonsense. Sooner or later, we're going to be on the island all by ourselves.
See, isn't this a lesson in being human? I thought when he was criticizing many different countries before the war, and he was calling them terrible things and talking about acquiring them, that in and of itself would have left a bad taste in their mouths, as to be allied and partnered with the United States in something so this is not a war that everybody agreed upon. And now you're calling on people who you've disrespected. You basically told them that you're going to take over their countries. And now you're mad that they won't join you in a war they don't even understand.
Yeah. As it relates to the United States of America and our current or former allies, you have to understand that these people have been in partnership for centuries. And the partnership is you carve out which part of the world you want, and we'll carve out which part of the world that we want. There's never been a moral compass in America. America was one of the last industrialized nations, or a nation on its way to industrialization, that to end slavery. America, as we're talking about the Constitution and freedom and the Bill of Rights and all this other wonderful stuff, they came up with Jim Crow and segregation. So it's like when you come into this country, you watch television and you see all of the skyscrapers in Manhattan and all of the wealth and all of the prosperity, but you don't realize that if you go across the bridge, you find people that are dirt poor. You find crime, you find drugs, you find the underbelly of America. And the underbelly of America has got control of this country. But my question to you is on a domestic front. Just the other day, Trump signed an executive order basically ending mail-in balloting.
While he mailed his in?
While he mailed his in, correct. Now, my question is, so here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, what is the responsibility of the Commonwealth now that this executive order has been signed? How is it going to affect those who may want to, vote via mail-in ballot?
This is a great question, because I have to keep starting with the premise of what an executive order is. One, executive order is not law. Executive order is an administrative order to tell Trump's administrative agencies how they are going to act and respond in discharging their duties. Now, we have to remember, elections are states' rights. States have control of their own elections, meaning the process by which they're going to be employing, how people can vote, and what people are eligible to vote. Those are all state legal sovereign questions that Trump cannot use an executive order to override. So he can do any performative action that he wants and say that it applies to every state, but his executive order does not apply to the way states distribute their voting rights and their access to the ballot. So that first and foremost, we have to understand an executive order is not law. It is just an order, an administrative order authorizing his agencies, federal agencies, to do things a certain way.
Now, what he did, I think what they're trying to do to counter that is they putting in this SAFE Act.
Yes. Now that's different, because that will be Congress passing a law that now will force states to deal with a new legal premise, right? So I don't know what is going to be in the SAFE Act with respect to mail-in ballots, if anything. I haven't really heard anything specifically in the SAFE Act with respect to mail-in ballots. I did hear about requiring identifications and requiring other things that would make sure there's no voter fraud going on, and which is going to disenfranchise many people, because we know the hoops that you have to go through to get certain official IDs where people don't even have the paper. I mean, let me tell you, just to get a real ID, it's taken me over 8 months just to get the appointments necessary, to get the paperwork necessary, to get the real ID. And I can imagine people who are coming out who really don't have an organized structure of where their paperwork is. But I don't want to digress to that. But what I will say is that an executive order alone is never going to do this. Now, Congress can act and now repeal or create laws around saying mail-in ballots are no longer constitutional. But that would require court interpretation, because someone would have to go and challenge that act of Congress, because it's the courts that will interpret the constitutionality. But
I'm going to tell you something. For this past time that he's been in office, everybody screams executive order. They talk Congress. They talk Supreme Court. This man has been like on an unstoppable train.
Yeah.
No matter what the Supreme Court says, all the stuff that they say is illegal and we must go through Congress in order to get these things approved, he's still doing them.
Well, he's doing some of them, because we have to see the court has smacked him down on a few things, not as many as we would like, but a few things. I think he's going to lose his birthright citizenships argument. I mean, it looks like the Supreme Court did pick up the appeal, but I hope they picked it up to enshrine that this is a law that will not just be eviscerated and erased. It has been since, I mean, we're talking about since the Dred Scott decision. We were talking about birthership rights. So this is not something that can easily be eviscerated, like, unfortunately, Roe v. Wade and the right to choose, a woman to choose what to do with her own body. But some of his executive orders, if you paid attention, there are executive orders, and he is committed and he has instructed his Department of Justice to carry out those executive orders, which is a different theory than his executive orders just touches all states. He has put people in place in his administrative agencies, especially the Department of Justice, to do his bidding on the executive order. So let's just take, for instance, DEI. When he writes an executive order that all DEI is illegal, well, Pam Bondi puts out a framework where she's going to go after companies, cities, municipalities who have programs that are designed to promote diversity, equity, inclusion. That's not Trump's executive order doing that. That's Pam Bondi making his executive order functional through the Department of Justice. She's gone. I don't know who's going to be the next puppet, but it really is going to stand to reason. Can Trump keep using people in these positions that are supposed to be entrusted by the American people to do the work of the Constitution and not for the political climate of the day? Are they going to continue to do things like enforce his executive orders through their legal structure? We got to pay attention, not just to what the president's doing, but who he appoints.
Yeah, like Gnomes. Chris Gnomes. Yeah.
He's gone. And
like I was telling you, I'm still wondering where that $143 million was went to. And this other cat, Kash Patel, he's a joke. He literally is a joke. I don't understand
look at his cabinet.
How somebody can get that job. How could he get that job?
Look at RFK. RFK is like, forget the science. I'm gonna tell you what I think. Like, we have people in extremely high authority and high stakes positions who, when we claim that we're in a merit-based system, that's why we don't need any diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't see what the merit has been for them other than loyalty to the president.
Well, I could tell you one thing, because my man Yates, he was telling me about the Rubio. What were you saying about he went to this meeting, the European meeting or something, and he said something about colonizing the world? What was that?
Yeah. He went to a high-level meeting in Europe. And he talked about we need to get together as, the former colonial powers, and we need to recolonize using, buzzwords that we need to recolonize the earth. And of course, he got a standing ovation, because you must understand that many of the colonies, say in countries like Africa, they've been lost, right? Burkina Faso, Niger, and others have thrown the French out, and other European powers. So now they're trying to reestablish a foothold back in these countries. And one of the sticking points is, of course, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is getting bogged down in these wars in what's called the Middle East and getting caught up in power grabs like trying to take Greenland and now Cuba. Like, what the hell are we going to do with Cuba and Greenland when we barely have enough resources to deal with our current expenditures in this country? Just the other day, I don't know if you caught it or not, Trump went on TV at a press conference and said, well, we can't fund things like healthcare and Medicaid, things like that, because we're fighting a war.
Yeah.
So in other words, right. So in other words, for people who are elderly, who may rely on subsidies, people who are very young, babies, infants, women, with small children who rely on subsidies, well, he's basically telling them, you're on your own because we have to fight a war. And our priority is the war. He's looking for I think it's $1.7 trillion for the Pentagon.
For the military. Yep, for the
For
military.
the Pentagon, right?
Someone has a question. They were asking about, they didn't know that Donald Trump was attacking Africa. I guess they didn't know that when he talked about Nigeria, was that the country he wanted to bomb and blow up and attack? And he's trying to make a foothold in Africa. Of course he did. All big nations right now are trying to make a foothold in Africa. That's where all the resources are.
Right. But really, I think he's attacking every Afro-diasporic country in the world. I mean, when you look at who he's been going after, it's more so that Afro population, the Afro-diasporic population that he's been going after. We're talking about Cuba. We're talking about, look, Haiti's been eviscerated. There's been so many areas that he has attacked, all while allowing and more so encompassing a more white Anglo-Saxon European vision for the world. Like, those are they're going to be the dominant countries that are going to take over some of these other Afro-diasporic countries, where he's weakened the infrastructure. He's imposed unreasonable tariffs on many of these folks. He has threatened other countries for offering aid, especially in Cuba, when they were reliant on doctors and emergency medical staff from other countries. They've been threatened with that. They've put tariffs on oil. These countries are now debilitated because Trump has attacked and gone after their infrastructure so bad, and I believe so that others can acquire them.
Well, this is a young man, and this is what they say, is that they have resources and they saved it for the billionaires. In other words, that's where the money is going, which I can agree, because if you look at, now you think about this, the oil prices are going up, right? Oil is going up. And a lot of this is based on speculation about on the war, how long the war is going to last. But like we said, everybody else is going through the straits except America. So you can see what's happening. The money's going. Where's the money going? Who's it going to? Rich people. You raise the prices on the gas, you raise the prices on the oil, they're sucking this money right up. And they're taking this money out of our pockets and tell us that we need to be patriotic because there's a war going on.
Now, could that be a reason why the Democratic Party is not more forceful as it relates to Trump? And what I mean by that is, the Democratic donors, aren't some of them heavily invested in oil? Aren't some of them?
I want to answer this question for this person here. I'm sorry. So they're saying that Venezuela and Iran have nothing to do with Africa. So I just like to let them know, Venezuela, oil, what are they, the second in the world or something?
Yeah.
Iran, what are they? They're like third, or they're all in that same oil. And all of the resources that are in Africa, after Burkina Faso decided to kick all the other people out, the French people out, what did Trump call him? A terrorist. Because he doesn't want the United States to come in, or any other country to come in and steal all their gold and all their resources like they've been doing for years. So yes, Venezuela and Africa and Iran, they have a lot in common.
Well, the tactics that are used by the colonial powers are the same whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Central South America, or whether it's in Asia. You know, when you talked about what happened in Iran, if you go back around 1953, the U.S. used their first, and I mean their first, and this was basically their playbook for destabilizing the government was in Iran. They sent in, it was Kermit Roosevelt, the grandson of Teddy Roosevelt. And he went in and he basically wrote the blueprint on how to destabilize the government. And he drove their democratically elected prime minister, Mossadegh, from power. All Mossadegh wanted was an equitable share of what was coming out of Iranian sands, the oil. Well, after England said we're not going to allow this, and Mossadegh went through all the proper channels, the U.S. also got involved, right, and drove him from power. Then we turned around, and what are we saying about Iran? We're talking about Iran in terms of Iran is a failed state. Iran is led by a madman. Mm-hmm. We've been saying that madman since 19. Remember, we put the Shah. We put the Shah of Iran in power, and he was killing his own people. We said nothing because it was government-sponsored terrorism. Now that we have the Ayatollah Khomeini, and then the Ayatollah that came after him, Khamenei, right? We say that he is a madman. We don't talk in terms of a madman for Trump, but Trump is the one that has went to Venezuela and kidnapped a Democratic elected president and his wife. Trump is the one that is now attacking Cuba. What is there in Cuba? What American interest is there in Cuba? Right. Trump is the one that has threatened Greenland, but we talk about him as if this man is not losing his mind. You know, I mean.
Well, I mean, can I just say this? Because, and I'm sorry to cut in. You know, the person who just gave the comment that Venezuela and Iran have nothing to do with Africa. First of all, Africa and Afro-diasporic countries, when I say Afro-diasporic countries, meaning countries that have a lot of Black and brown communities in them because of the Atlantic slave trade, drop people off all over the world, not just in America, but all over the world too. America was the largest recipient, but still. I want to make sure that we tie this into his agenda. The America First agenda focuses more on trades rather than immigration deals. I mean, rather than like aid, right? So we have a shift from aid to trade with the Trump administration, meaning we have relationships with some of these other countries, especially in Africa, Nigeria, and all those, where we did give and administer partnership through aid, offered immigration opportunities, all of those things. Trump has now really cut out any immigration opportunities from certain countries across the world. He's basically, with this America First policy, has made other countries take immigrants from America that belong to countries other than theirs. And if they didn't, he would levy heavy tariff policies or tariff sanctions on them. He has weakened economies through tariff sanctions. I mean, he's restricted migration, even when people are in dire need for countries and for areas such as Haiti, such as Mexico. He has really stopped the ability for coming in on legal immigration methods that have to do with refugee status. So we're talking about a mindset in which he has shifted for countries he thinks that are too much on the leash of America. They rely too much on our aid. They rely too much on us. And that we need to boost to move over to countries that do better with trade deals, which are generally the more, richer countries with richer economies, economies that we want something from. That's what he's strengthening while he's weakening others. And that's all a part of his agenda. This America First agenda. If you look at where he's targeting the America First agenda to the nations that he does not think help America with their trade, with their boosting their economy, those are the ones he's going after and just destroying and eviscerating them.
I think it's important. I think it's important to talk about aid, right? American aid. the aid that would go to countries in Africa, they would say is soft power. And they would use it to influence the government, right? To establish American power in these countries. When we talk about aid, America would say invest $100 million to countries in Africa, but how much would they extract? How much would the colonial powers extract? Hundreds of billions of dollars would come out of Africa. So they'll give you $150, $200 million, and it seems like a lot of money, but they don't tell you they're taking $200 billion out in terms of the resource that country produces.
And Ron, you know, honestly, that's not just an American thing. That's the way of the world, right? So China is doing the same thing with Panama, right? I mean, they are investing to build up resources with technology and all those things, but all the while they're creating business opportunities for themselves. I mean, that is, I think that's the way of investment versus what do I get out of it long term. I mean, look, the way you do it is the evil, the devil is in those details. But I do think most people invest to get something out.
Well, what I meant, I said that.
We had a guest. We had somebody make a comment. You know, we got to keep the people happy. So I just want to tell give last. Now this is what they said. It says you have to acknowledge that the president that we have was selected. He was not elected. So I kind of like what he said, because if you think about it, our president was actually selected by the Heritage Fund. The Heritage Foundation.
And that may be true, but does the Heritage Fund have is that the only way he could be in power? Was he selected by people who sat home? Was he selected by people who wanted a third party that could not win? Was he selected by people who just did not want the woman Kamala Harris in play? Because if we're talking about selection, we need to talk about all the things that help the selection become realistic.
Lionel says that he just didn't like black people.
You know what? I just want to go. I just want to go back to the part about aid again, foreign aid. Sorry. I wanted to stress that point because a lot of people in this country, they complain about we're not taking care of our own people, and so much money is going to other countries. I want these people to be aware, for every dollar that we send abroad, we're taking millions of dollars in. It's not filtering down to the poor and working class people, but corporations are making tons of money, right? And yes, I understand that is the business model, but these are things that people in the grassroots level need to understand. America's not giving this stuff away. American corporations and the former colonial powers are profiting to the tunes of billions of dollars yearly from what they're taking out of Africa. They put a drop in a bucket and then take the whole bucket. Now,
but we do have to remember that Trump has reduced aid 30%. So he must be looking at another business proposition. If that's, I mean, look, I can't say, I'm not the expert on foreign policy, right? I obviously agree with you that corporations get rich when we provide multi-million-dollar packages to, I don't know, corporations like the AIDS. You know, when AIDS was a big thing, there were people that set up their structures, whether it was nonprofit, whatever, that rendered that money to where they believed it should go. So we do know that those people are in connection. But Trump has dismantled or reduced aid 30% in African countries.
He has.
Right? All right. Kira says she said she only have a half an hour.
I know.
I'm not going to steal too much more of her time because we're just about at that half an hour. So what we are going to do is we're going to say thank you very much for coming on, because we love you when you come on this show. You always have a lot of input and good things to say. So we want to say thank you for that, you know, and we always want you to come back.
Thank you. And let me tell you, Ron, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your advocacy. Kendall, thank you for just having this platform where we can talk about it from our perspective. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is just the perspective that I bring based on the knowledge that I have. And I love to always connect it with Ron's and
And
yourself.
this is why I asked you to come
Thank
on
you
the show.
so much.
Your knowledge is very, very well accepted here. And as far as my man Ron, you see what I'm telling you about Ron? Okay,
Ron,
he's the man.
yes,
All
he
right,
is.
so what we're gonna do here, we're gonna take a little quick commercial break, and when we come back, it'll just be me and Ron. All right, peace.
You got it.
All right, thank you very much, Wolfpack. That was paid for and presented by Wolfpack. So Wolfpack is sporting apparel. As you can see, you can look them up on Instagram. They have some pretty good, pretty nice stuff. Anytime you want to check it out, Ron. So let's get back to which direction we're going. We got so many things that we can break open today.
Well,
We can stick back to Iran, or we can stick it to somewhere else. Which way you want to go, brother?
I think that it is important that we, the American people, understand that we have been trying to work within the current political framework. And you have to understand something. The powers that be, what have they been doing? They have been dismantling the political framework. They have been getting rid of the safeguards, right? Trump could not have done half the things he is currently doing and has done without removing the political safeguards, the social safeguards. If you go back throughout history, you go back as far as, say, World War II. When Hitler was elected and became Chancellor of Germany, what did he do? He began to dismantle. Prior to Hitler, Germany was a democratic republic. They had um, the Weimar Constitution. So Hitler dismantled that. He changed the system. Trump in this country is changing the system. He's shaping it to fit his agenda. And we are trying to work within that framework. They don't do that. They change the framework. And as long as we're going to try to work within that political framework, we're going to lose. Because what's happening right now? Right now, if you look at Trump's poll numbers, they're plummeting. That means that MAGA has become disillusioned with the president. But now, where do they go? Come if we have a midterm election, who do they vote for? Well, the Democrats are being pretty quiet right now. They're saying we'll just sit back and wait, and we'll welcome our voters with open arms. Well, in 2 years, when the Democrats fail to carry through on their promises, we'll be mad at the Democrats. And where will we go? The Republicans will be waiting with their arms open. Come back to us. All we're doing is ping-ponging between the same people, the same system that has been broken for decades.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, this is what I think. It may not be true. It's just a hyperbole or whatever. But I'm going to tell you, I think we're just living under the umbrella of corporations. I believe everything that's going on is being controlled by corporations. So LBJ, I think he said it really good. You give them somebody to look down upon, and you can pick their pockets. You can take every dime that they got. Matter of fact, they'll give you every dime. So here it is. We're giving somebody to look down upon constantly. First it was the blacks, then it's the immigrants, now it's the Iranians. We're always giving somebody to look down upon. And what are these people doing? You can hear it all the time. We're spending billions of dollars on this. We're spending trillions of dollars on that. But you say Medicaid, Medicare, anything that's supposed to be there to help the American people, They don't have that money. Sounds just like a damn corporation.
Well, you know what? You have to understand something, right? I think about 96% of our elected officials in Washington take money from groups like APEC. So how can you be independent? How can you represent me when your benefactors are thousands of miles away? Why is it that in this country, we are spending or we are sending billions of dollars so that Israelis can get free education and free healthcare?
Free education, free
Why?
medical, universal health care.
Why are American taxpayers paying for Israeli veterans to have a pension? Not because they fought here, because they fought in Israeli wars. They were a member of the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. We, the American people, are paying their pensions. In this country right now, there are so many people that are facing possible criminal charges because they spoke out against Israel, not against our government, but against Israel. Israel and people like Netanyahu and his Zionist cohorts are trying to stifle free speech. Isn't that one of the things Trump ran on? Is that something that J.D. Vance talked about? Why did Joe Biden shut down free speech? Why didn't he allow us to speak out, the American people, when now you're allowing Israel to silence us? And you don't have a damn thing to say about that.
You know, when people talk this propaganda, these people, they can lie, they can say whatever they want. I believe that the old saying is that you take a lie, and if you continue to tell a lie, by the time it gets down the road, it'll sound like the truth, and people will start believing it like the truth. Because this man, way back since 2016, he's been lying and lying. He's a criminal. He's a thief. He's a sex abuser, hangs out with sex abusers. You understand? He's destroying this country. And him, Pam Bondi, and all the rest of the crew, all they're doing is just ciphering money from us. This is our taxpayer money. Look, you got a private jet. What do you need a private jet with a big bedroom in there that you're screwing some other guy, right? That you're in there screwing some guy. You're flying around on taxpayers' money. That pisses me off.
You have to understand something. When you say that Trump is destroying this country, when you say Biden or Obama was destroying this country been destroyed a long time. This country was destroyed in 1913 when they established the Federal Reserve Act. From that time on, the money has not been flowing into the pockets of the American people, but has been flowing out. That was the genesis of the largest redistribution of wealth ever. Think about it. How can America be in debt if the Federal Reserve is part of the government? How are you in debt to yourself?
The Federal Reserve is not part of the government.
It's a privately owned bank, and who owns it? And when you find out who owns the Federal Reserve Bank,
would I be saying something wrong?
You're saying one of the major investors in the Federal Reserve, but there are others. There's the Bronfmans, there's the Lees, there's the Warburgs, and several others who have set up this bank to loan money to governments. So every bomb we drop in Iran, we are borrowing money from countries like China, from countries like Japan, from some of our German, if they want a current or former allies, to bomb. How do we pay that money back when we're on nearly $40 trillion in debt? And currently, the Pentagon is asking for more than $1 trillion. Where's that money going to come from? And here's something that bothers me about both parties. Whenever there is a big ticket item, like with Obama, with healthcare, the question comes up, how are we going to pay for it? How many senators, members of Congress, have you ever heard them ask, how do we pay for war? They never ask that question because there's always a way to pay for war. You are more interested in killing people than you are
you're starting to sound like
healing people.
You know, you're starting to sound like, right? You're starting to sound like
who's that?
Tupac,
but you know what? Tupac was right.
Tupac said we got money for wars, but we ain't got no
But
money
can't
to
feed the poor. Right. And he was 100% right. And that is something that continues to this day. Trump just said it. We're fighting a war. So the domestic programs, the ones that keep food on your table, the one that keep your lights on, the one that feeds small children, the one that take care of the elderly, we're going to have to stop funding those programs so we can fight a war that the American people never asked for. A war that you promised would not happen under your watch. Now you're telling us we have to make, and you're telling us we have to make sacrifices, not you, not you. We, the American people, have to make sacrifice for something we didn't want.
You know that's what the American people need to understand, is that these guys get up there and they tell you we need to do this and we need to do. They're not suffering when they close the government down and the TSA workers are not getting paid. They're getting a paycheck.
Right.
Congress and all the rest of them, they're all still getting paychecks, right?
And let me just say something.
They pay the TSA workers. They can't pay them.
Well, let me just say something. You mentioned $143 million that was missing. You have to understand something. That's just a drop in the bucket. So what Trump has been doing, Trump has not been funding a number of programs. We're talking foreign aid. We're talking domestic programs that have been slashed. This is what Doge was supposed to do. Well, all that money that was supposedly collected by Doge, all of the alleged savings from cutting these programs, where's the money going? See, when Trump leaves office, we'll find out where the money went. That money is going to the Trump family and those rich billionaires that surround him. That money isn't be sitting in a bank account somewhere. That money is going to these wealthy families. And when America, when he gone, we'll realize we've been fleeced.
I don't think people understand is that when they say that they're going to cut this budget and cut that budget and defund this and that money was already allocated. The money was already earmarked. There.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, the money
was already allocated.
So
and Trump,
where that money go? Where's that money
and
going?
Trump
Where's it going?
He held up distribution of those funds. It is illegal. And several states and municipalities are suing him. But Trump, what he always does, keeps you tied up in litigation for years. So when he leaves office and they go in and they do an audit and find that trillions of dollars is just missing, it'll be too late then. Trump already has an escape plan. Trump has a $400 million 747 that he can get on at any time and disappear. Right? So for us to think that we're going to stop Trump, the time to stop Trump was when he was out of office. The Democrats had the opportunity then to prosecute him. Now, 4 years or 5 years, nearly 6 years later, Jack Smith testifies before Congress, and he has hundreds of thousands of incriminating documents that could have put Trump in jail. No action was taken. He was convicted, right, in New York. Why didn't they start this pattern or these convictions when he first left office after January 6th? Why didn't they do it then? They waited 4 years. 4 years to bring charges, to bring a prosecution. All that did was
you saw what took place during that time.
All that did was buy time for Trump.
You remember they kept saying, well, we don't want to prosecute him just before an election because we don't want to prejudice the election. That's bullshit.
That was stupid. That was stupid.
I guess people don't remember Hillary Clinton, right?
Well, it was all stupid. It was a miscalculation on the behalf of the Democrats. You had this man. How do you justify an insurrection? How do you justify an attack on law enforcement? How do you justify that, right? At worst, they could have dragged Trump into court and make him and his lawyers explain his actions, but they didn't. They allowed him to buy time. and to gather strength with his base.
And you got to ask yourself, how many of them are getting paid down the line, man? How many people that allowed Trump to slip and slide? How much money are they getting in their pockets? You know,
well,
that's got to be the question. If you're going to keep letting them go.
Well, that's why I said, right, there are many Democratic donors who are heavily invested in petroleum. So the Democrats are not being very forceful. Why? The other day, now you mentioned about, on a show we had maybe a week or two ago, you talked about the No Kings demonstration. And I said to you then, isn't it strange that no politician showed up? You have gatherings of literally hundreds of thousands of people, and nobody from either party took advantage to come out and rally the crowd.
They came out here in PA. They came out here in PA. You had
that was one of that was but that was one of the smaller demonstrations.
Terra came out. Terra came out, and a couple of other politicians, they came out. But you didn't have none of the big wigs and come out.
That's my point. That's my point. Politicians always take advantage of a crowd to get there and get in front of that crowd and rally the base, right? We have an election coming up in less than 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. A major election that could define the next 100 years in this country. And yet nobody thought to come out and say, hey, I'm here. I support you. I'm listening to you. That goes to tell me there's a major disconnect between the politicians in Washington and what's happening here on the ground. And for Trump,
I want to answer the question for the young lady. You got a young lady. Mm-hmm. She's asking the question about how do we stop the authority to the president? How do we stop the funding? Well, that's a matter for Congress. The purse strings are held by Congress. That's who would have to, if anybody's going to stop the president, that's going to be the one that's going to stop the president. That's it.
You know what? I think let's take that a step further. In countries like France, when the government takes actions that the people find detrimental, there are nationwide strikes. The people are like, no, we are not going to go to work. We are not going to create money, right? Wealth for a nation that has discarded us. American people continue to make it work for the government. We're not on strike. We're not demanding anything from the government. We think, well, we'll just vote them out. And you're going to vote in who? The other side of the aisle? The same people that sat idly by while he destroyed the Constitution, while he kidnapped a foreign head of state, while he went to war with Iran illegally, while he's talking about taking Cuba. Where is the Democratic Party? Where are the voices of reason? So if in this country...
Remember we discussed that once. We said that there are no true enemies. There are no true friends. So that all that Republican and Democrat, it is what it is. You got to find a good person is a good person, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. You got to look for somebody that has your policies, your interests, that's going to take care of business, whether it's Republican or whether it's Democrat. Because they, this is what they want. They want us to be back and forth against each other. We talked about Huey P. Newton. Once we come together as a people, just imagine if the Democrats and the Republicans stop all that nonsense and say, hey, we're Americans. We're looking to get the best person in office. But this young lady, she also wanted to say that about change, and that nothing's going to change because of the power that they have, that they're in power and nothing is going to change. And she said to tell the truth.
The problem is this: according to the Constitution, according to the Declaration of Independence, right? Those documents, if you read the Constitution, the preamble says, we, the people. The power has rested with the people. We have allowed the government to take that power from us. But again, we are the ones who create wealth for this country. If we say enough is enough, just think about it. We would have still been riding on the back of the bus If the people in Birmingham, Alabama did not say, we're not getting on them damn buses till we are treated like human beings. After a number of losses, I mean, the losses were piling up at his bus company. They took down those white only signs, didn't they? And here in this country, if we, the workers, the taxpayers in this country said, hey, listen, nothing is going to move in this country until there's change at the top. Just think about this. Everything in this country travels by truck, plane, or train. What if the truck driver says, we're not moving the truck? What if the people who operate the trains, the conductors and engineers says, we're not moving these trains down the tracks? What if the pilots from, say, UPS, FedEx, say, we're not taking off until there's change in this country? But what we do is we make it work for them. And yet they don't give a damn about us. Just a week ago, people waiting 4 and 5 hours in a line to get on the plane, right? All they would have had to do is say, damn it, we're not going to fly until you fix this problem. And the airlines, you know what they would have done? They would have lobbied Congress. They would have said, oh, you want your campaign contribution? Fix this. But we make it work.
Again, it's all about the dollar, man. It comes down to the dollar. If you cut them short on making money, then they'll act upon it. That's kind of what we're saying here.
They do it every time.
But the deal is that you're going to have a lot of people that are not going to be down with that kind of a cause. You know that, because they're going to say, look, I got to feed my family. I just can't give up my job. I can't just stop working because I'm going to lose money, or they're going to fire me. You're going to have a whole bunch of people that's going to afraid to join into that type of a revolution. And as Malcolm X kind of said it, either we're going to do it with the bullet or we're going to do it with the ballot. Enough of us are not going to get together to say, hey, we're going to do it by the bullet, because that means we're going to have a total revolution. That's not going to happen. So the only other thing that we got, the only real ammunition that we have, is the voting. And, voting has moved us from one point to another to another. We haven't really gotten anywhere in this country without a vote. All the big things that took place in this country took place through a vote, right?
Well, I'll tell you something, right? For those people that are afraid, they don't want to put their neck, stick their neck out. But it's going to happen to you anyway. Think about all the people that were fired when Trump got elected. All those federal workers, where they at right now? They are sitting at home trying to find a job. And these people, some of them supported Donald Trump, voted for him, bought his gaudy watches.
90% of them were African American women.
Those are the ones who are hurting. You're going to hurt anyway. And listen, isn't Trump telling you to hurt? Trump is telling you to be patient. How can you be patient when you're looking at your paycheck and you're looking at what it costs to pay for gas? You're looking at what it costs to pay for food. How can you be patient? How can you be patient when your children are coming to you and say, Daddy, I'm hungry?
Well, this is be realistic. Back to Ubuntu, right? Remember, this is where we have to remember I am because we are. That we have, for us as African Americans or Black people in this world, we got to remember how we got to where we are. All right. And we have to remember to listen to our ancestors. So our ancestors didn't rely on this or that for their agriculture. We did it with ourselves. And remember, if your brother is hungry, then you don't eat. And what you got, you share with your brother. So here we come back now to one neighbor helping the other neighbor. And that's kind of the way I guess we'll have to do it. If we're going to do it that way.
That's the only way to survive. Well, it has worked, right? It has worked. We are for now, right? But we have to understand something. We are coming to a critical time in this country, right? For people who still have faith in Trump, understand something. Trump is running this country in the exact same manner that he ran his businesses. And what happened to all of Trump's businesses? Not a single business that Trump started is still operating today. Not one. And the problem is Trump would get there, and just as he's doing now, making unhealthy, unwise decisions and not listening to any salient or common sense advice. And right now, Trump is putting people around him that won't give him advice. All they say is, oh, Mr. President, I think that's a great idea. Why is it a great idea to take this country into a war in Iran? Why is it a great idea to take Greenland? Why is it a great idea to blockade Cuba and cut off Cuba from getting oil? Why is that a good idea? How does that make America great again? How does that make America profitable again? How does that, excuse me, how does that make America have the respect and prestige it used to have decades ago?
It doesn't.
And if that is not what is happening, then the American people have to realize, right? We have been lied to. We have, like Malcolm said, we have been bamboozled.
Look, they recently took a page out of North Korea's playbook. So the satellites, the news satellites that report the news back to us, to America, they told them to cut them off. They don't want us to receive the real news. You know, It's like I was listening to BBC, and according to them, America is broke, bro.
America's been broke. America has been bankrupt since the establishment of the Federal Reserve Act. And you have to understand something. The reason JFK was killed, right, was he wanted to do away with the Federal Reserve. He wanted to get rid of the CIA. He talked about secrecy and how it was repugnant in this country. And if you go back before JFK, it was Eisenhower that said, beware of the military-industrial complex. He saw it coming. And he warned us in the 50s. And what did American people do? We go through life like this, right?
That's right.
All we see is what's in front of us. And what's in front of us? Fox News, CNN, Newsmax. It shapes our perception. So in this country, why Trump is in the White House right now? Because they have tapped into the anger and the frustration of white men in this country, who they have indoctrinated them with the idea that they are taking away your livelihood. They are taking away the prestige and the power that you had. But who is the they? They'll talk about things like affirmative action. Well, all the good jobs are going to the black and the brown. We didn't ask for affirmative action. We never requested affirmative action. It was not us that wrote the legislation. It was not us that signed the legislation. Yet somehow we're the ones who they're angry at. Why?
And we're not the ones who benefited the most from it either. I wish people say that too. We're not the ones that benefited the most from this.
And that's what people need to know. We didn't ask for it. We didn't write the legislation. We didn't sign the legislation. And we're not the major benefactors. But because people live their life like this, staring at a big box that feeds them nonsense, and that is the world that they believe. This celluloid world, this TV world, what they see, the images they see, they believe, even when clearly it's to the contrary. Trump just said just the other day, or maybe it was today, man, I think it was yesterday, he talked about the fact that Iranians were tough fighters. A week ago, he said they were horrible fighters. He said they have nothing left. He said we bombed everything. And yet
we obliterated.
Obliterated. How are they shooting down planes if everything has been obliterated? Yet people still believe.
Oh boy, we're having
a slingshot.
Your mic, there you go. There you go. Your mic went in and out, but it's all good because we're about at the end of the show anyway. I just want to give props to my man. I've been watching this show, Sam Tillman. All right, if anybody gets an opportunity, go ahead check him out. He runs a podcast, and the podcast is a pretty good podcast. He has a panel, somewhat like we have a panel there, and the discussions that they have are pretty good. But he also supports this show. So in turn, I like to support him as well. So brother Sam, keep doing what you're doing. and we do appreciate you. Brother Ron?
I just like to point out one thing. One thing I like to point out. I watched a documentary yesterday called Deconstructing Karen. It's on Tubi. I think that it's very important that people watch that documentary. It is women, a black woman and an Indian woman. They invite white women to sit down to dinner to talk about race, their own racism, white fragility, and other issues. And it's so important that we have those conversations because the world is changing, whether you like it or not. White power is a thing of the past. So you need to now understand your place in the world around you. So I think we should have them on the show. I'm going to work on that.
Well, let's get them on the show. Let's sit them down. Let's have a chit chat. You know, we always like to do a little something like that. And it works out good. Brother D, Brother Derek, thank you very much, my man. All right. So my name is Kendall Stevenson. I always say peace. As my young ladies say, be yourself because everybody else is taken. My man Ron always says,
Hotep,
which means peace. So we're going to take this show on the road. See you guys next week. Thank all you people for tuning in. We truly, truly appreciate it. Tune in next week and we can start all over again. Peace.
Peace.